Welcome back to another episode of Faith First Business. I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest, Dr. LaChelle Wieme. She is a spirit-led mompreneur who knows what it's like to juggle career, family, and a deeper calling. LaChelle left her 20-year nurse anesthesia career to make more money, more impact, and have more time with her family. And now she's on a mission to help other women by strategizing their escape plan, scale their business, and level up their courage in order to finally create their life by design. As a coach, speaker, author, and podcaster, LaChelle uses a unique blend of brain science, quantum physics, and scripture to help others gain clarity, confidence, and consistency. She's on a mission to help multi-passionate solopreneurs create sustainable income and impact faster. I'm sure just from hearing that, you know why I have her on the show today. So let's dive in. Well, LaChelle, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm so excited to dive into kind of your journey and where you're at today, what you've got going on, and just letting the viewers really get a sense of who you are and what you do. So thanks for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Susan, for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation and really seeing how God is going to show up through us.
So let's just kind of set the scene and take us back to 12-year-old LaChelle. What are you like at that age and what are you doing?
Yeah, so 12-year-old LaChelle is probably, it's kind of sad actually. I look back at myself from those pictures, and I'm actually going to be using a picture from 12-year-old LaChelle in an upcoming keynote that I'm giving. And I'm going to paint this picture a little bit because I think that this is going to help describe kind of where I was. So my very, very first day of school in 7th grade, so 12-year-old LaChelle, my mom usually would take our pictures before school to signify the start of the school year. And that year she didn't. We must have been running behind. And so she took our picture when we got home. Unfortunately, I spent the majority of the 1-hour bus ride home crying. And that picture of that sweet little 12-year-old LaChelle is just puffy and full of tears and, not much of a smile. Now, what's interesting is that the reason that I was crying was a really good indication of who I thought I was and not necessarily who I knew God thought I was, if that makes any sense. So ironically enough, I went to a small school. So I was a farm kid, grew up in a really small class. There was like 45 kids in my class. And I was nominated to be class president. And I was super shy, introverted. Like, I don't even know if the person that nominated me was a joke or if they really felt like I was, going to add something to this. But I, here I was, like 7th grade, I'm going to be this class president. No big deal, right? That wasn't even what scared me. What scared me was at the end of that day, we got an announcement saying that all student council members, which now I would be student council, were supposed to report to a student council meeting that upcoming Friday at 7:30 in the morning. Now, what that meant was that I would have to ask my parents to bring me into school themselves instead of putting me on the bus. And Susan, like, this is what makes me sad, is that I didn't feel worthy enough to ask them to bring me into school. And it's not that they weren't amazing parents. Like, they were really hardworking, busy farmers who, appreciated that they could put the kids on the bus. And I didn't want to be a bother to them or a burden to them. And I just didn't want to inconvenience them. And so it wasn't even the fact that I was going to be this student council person or this class president. It was literally that I was so scared to have to say to my parents, I'm going to inconvenience you on Friday. Can you please bring me into school at 7:30? And, when I look at that situation, it was a really eye-opening experience for me because as an adult looking back now, I saw how I never felt like I was worthy. I felt like I was a bother. And what that led me down was this path of trying to people please, the path of trying to become the chameleon, to be who I thought everybody needed me to be, not too much. But I always felt like I was never enough for some and too much for others. And it was kind of like this perpetual cycle that I went into. And I think that is a lot of what led me down my career path. I ended up getting my doctorate in anesthesia practice. I ended up becoming a nurse anesthetist and working for one of the best healthcare facilities in the world. And I was a professor half-time for our Doctor of Nurse Anesthesia program. And when I look at that now, I look at that as a really outward indication that I had to do and be what everybody else wanted me to be. And I had to continually try to earn my worthiness through additional appointments or career changes that up the ladder, or my degrees, or whatever it was that I was doing, instead of just really stepping into everything that God was leading me to and who God wanted me to be. So there's my snapshot of 12-year-old Michelle.
Yeah, I can so relate. And I know so many of the listeners will as well. I mean, I think everyone to some degree has that, I don't want to be a burden. And we don't, at that age, you don't know how to articulate that. You don't know what it really is. For me, I was much, much older, and it was interesting though, the way that I figured that out was not in the way you would think, because I'm a therapist. And so you would think I would have figured that out when I was like in school training for that thing. No.
Yeah.
No, the Lord had to show that to me. So I'm
Absolutely.
curious to know how did God enter that picture? Like where was he in that
Yeah. So
time?
I think, one of the things that I think happened to me was he would give me these little breadcrumbs. And I say that when I coach people, when I consult with people, when I, wrote my book, I did it in a way that allows for me to highlight the three things that successful people do. The first is that they have a desire for better. The second is that they lean in and make the decision to follow that desire, and then the third is that they do what is necessary. And so I think that what happened to me was that I had that first desire, that inkling of something better. And I do believe that God can give us these tiny little breadcrumbs that are going to lead us to the next thing. So innocently enough, this is kind of funny story, but innocently enough, I was at the height of my career. So I had made it to my dream career as a nurse anesthetist and a professor. Had the 2 kids and the dream home, this high school sweetheart husband, and all the things, like cue the corny, dreamy music, right? But there was something inside of me that felt like I was missing something. I was ready for a new challenge. And so I actually ended up starting, of all things, a skincare business. And this is what's so funny about it, Susan, is that this is why I know this is from God. I wasn't even washing my face. Like, I literally not even, like, whatever random Pantene Pro V shampoo fell on my face in the shower was good enough. Right. So like, this is not my forte. I was also a shy introvert who had 200 friends on social media. Like, I literally had no business starting this business, but there was something about it that kept coming up in conversations. I kept noticing things on social media. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I remember saying, God, if you want me to do this, because this is so crazy, but if you want me to do this, Lord, please just send me people I can help. And within a matter of months, like 6 months, I was making enough money to drop my time at the hospital by a day a week. And
Wow.
he started to show me, Susan, what the and life was. And what I say the and life, and I think your listeners are going to relate to this, especially as moms, is that I had always felt like I had to climb all those career ladders because honestly, that made me feel worthy, right? But I felt like I was doing that and not being able to be the present mom that I wanted to be. And when he introduced this business into my life, he introduced me to the possibility that I can have both. I can have a life that makes me challenged and fulfilled, and I can be a present mom and wife. And that was like the catalyst to everything. I started to come alive. I started to see what I was capable of. I started to lean into him and where he was leading me and trust that he was going to equip me if he anointed me for this journey. And that allowed me to start building confidence. Like, of all things, this business allowed me to purposefully insert myself into the direct line of rejection, which is a introvert, low self-esteem, not worthy person's like nightmare, right?
Yes. Nightmare.
But all right, I'm going to trust you on this. And I would put myself directly in the line of rejection. And I discovered that I didn't die. I didn't lose all my friends and family. Like I literally just started to lean into him more, and he revealed to me things in that specific journey. He's like, LaChelle, you have been on this treadmill trying to earn your worthiness, and now you're out of balance and you're not being the mom that you want to be. I'm going to give you an opportunity to see what that could look like for you to have challenge, fulfillment, and impact and be a good mom. And that's really where he led that. And now I just want to help other people have the and life as well, because I think that when I look back on it, he really did help me to escape the struggle of always trying to prove my worth, that he brought me to a place where I got to lean on him more, and he got to show me what that worthiness was and where it came from, ultimately from him, right? Not from a degree, not from a title, not from an award. It was from him. And this is like literally the path that he had for me. And it took me to just leaning into that small desire and following that tiny little breadcrumb that led me to the next realization. So
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I love the way you describe it as the and life, that our God is such a good God. He's a good father, and he is for our abundance. We
yeah,
don't have to choose. It's not a either or. You can have all the things, like maybe not all at one time, but you can do all the stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. And so much of what you're saying, though, I really hear the foundation of identity in that, and if you don't have that, then it's really difficult to lean into those times. Like, when you said I could be confident in him,
Mhm.
it's hard to be confident in him if we don't know, not just that, if we don't know him, but also if we don't know ourselves and who he says we are.
Right. Right.
Like that having that foundation of identity.
Right.
So how did you kind of come into that knowing of this is what God really thinks about me?
Yeah. So, I mean, I wish that I could say that it like, I had a dream and then I woke up and it was all beautiful, but I really do feel that all of this was the direct, like next step that he was leading me in, the next step and the next step. And I do believe that everything happens for us if we learn to look for it. Right. And so over the last, I've been in business now for almost 7 years. Becoming that business owner was literally the catalyst that changed everything. He revealed to me that I was out of balance with my family life before I even knew it. He showed me that I was leaning on the wrong things for worthiness even before I realized it, right? But it was literally just starting the business. And again, I mentioned this, like I was a shy, awkward introvert who didn't want to put anything on social media because I never wanted to stand out. I didn't want to have people looking at me and judging me, right? And so it's literally just like the thing that I was scared of, and I leaned in, and then I discovered that I wasn't going to die, and like, okay, God, you're here with me, and it was like the next step. So then I got a little bit braver, and then I got a little bit braver, and I think that so often we think that it has to be the confidence that comes first before we take action, but that's not what happens. We have to take action, and that inspires us to take another action because we didn't die, right? And the world didn't implode around us. And then the action with the little bit of courage, and then building that little bit of inspiration and doing another action with courage is going to be what builds the confidence. And so I think that putting myself into direct line of possible rejection by posting things on social media or inviting people to learn about my business, or now then standing in front of people and talking about myself or my business, I never would have thought in a million years, looking at myself 8 years ago, that I would be who I am, having written now 2 books. And the last one is super vulnerable, like lots of really inside, like digging deep kind of stuff that's in there. I've had a podcast for the last 3 years where I've gotten really vulnerable in there. I never would have imagined that I would have gotten to this place, but it literally just took one step in courage, doing something that scared me, knowing that I wasn't going to be, falling over dead because of it, and then do the next step in courage. And it's always been also finding the lessons in the hard times. I think that the Lord has really taken his patient time with me and has shed the patterns of this world that have clouded my view of self, in a way that sometimes was painful. I have had to have relationships pruned from me, which were really, really hard, really, really, really hard. Like probably one of the hardest things I've ever been through. But he had to strip me from the title of best friend to realize that he is my best friend, that my worth comes from him, not from the people in my life. And while they are amazing people and I love them so much, they do not determine my worth. But it took stripping some people from me to help me see that I was really making myself a pretzel in order to be who other people needed me to be, out of a conservation of making sure that the relationship is good, right? And really being who I needed to be for myself, and recognizing that I even put myself into codependent, behaviors in order to try to be needed, in again proving that inner worth with me. And he really helped me to see that what I was doing was I was serving people out of a need to be needed, instead of serving them out of an overflow from his love. And so it's like, once he stripped some of these people from me, or, put me through other situations that I've had to prune the things that were of this world, he taught me that he wants me like this more than anything. He wants me to be sitting up nice and straight like a vase. And rather than pouring myself over into people and then not refilling that, what he wants me to do is just stand up really tall. Like I have this beautiful crown. I'm a daughter of the king, standing strong and in his love, accept his love coming down on me without me turning over. He literally allowed me to see that all I need to do is keep standing in him and allowing all of his love to flow from me, like overflow from the top into others. And that is a better way to serve people, as I get to serve them from a whole loved version instead of somebody that needs something from them. And I was able to explain this to my daughter. I'm like, God has made us kind of like a cupcake, right? Like the cupcake is going to be so delicious already, but friends and family and things are like the sprinkles. Yeah, it makes it look a little bit prettier. It's a little bit more fun to eat and maybe tastes a little bit better, but the cupcake is still amazing by itself. And that's how God has made us. We're this beautiful cupcake that he's made. And all of these other things are like the sprinkles that can make it better. But I needed to figure out that while I would love something, I didn't need it to be me. And I think that that's just the other thing, not only just taking those steps in courage and learning, but finding the gifts and the lessons in the hard things have allowed me to step back into who he's made me to be.
Yeah. And that's such a hard lesson, I think, for so many of us, that we don't need other people. They're the cherry on top. They're the sprinkles. Like God has already made us complete in and of ourselves, right? In him. And wow, it's just such a beautiful picture of this vase and just the overflow, right? That we're loving out of overflow. We can't give if there's nothing in there. If that vase is empty, you can't give to people. You can't serve, and it's not doing anybody any good. So I love that. Just beautiful picture of the overflowing vase. And I think a lot of times people, they may, watch these interviews and think, oh, well, she's been at it for a long time and she's set up, and we have all these ideas about how easy it was for other people, and it's not easy for us. And so I'd like to go back to, 7 or 8 years ago, when you are in that time of transition of leaving your job. Like, kind of walk us through that, what that was like in switching.
Well, and this is so great. And I'm so grateful that you brought it up in that way, because here's the deal, you guys, like, and again, like, this is one of the things that I talk about on my podcast as well, is to get away from like, oh, everybody makes it look so easy, but it's not. So I started my first business, my online business. It would be 7 years in this coming up September. So 6.5 years ish. And I didn't leave my full-time career until this last September. And so I want you guys to recognize, like, even though I had all of these amazing tools and I write about a lot of them in my book, it still took me that much time to be able to step and truly trust him. And it's okay if it's hard for you. In fact, those are the people right now that I am primarily helping in my business, is the people who were like me, who know that God is calling you for really big, amazing things, that you feel this stirring inside of your soul that you need to make a bigger impact. And you know that leaning into your business is what's going to make that happen. And although, like, I think oftentimes people think that we have to be discontented to leave, I really did love my job. I just wasn't where the Lord wanted me. And I was so afraid. I made a really good living doing what I did. And I think that sometimes that beautiful safety net was a blessing and a curse, in the sense that, you know, it was difficult for me to leave a multiple six-figure job to go after where he's leading me. But it was scary, and I can get into all kinds of details around that. But I think that when I finally just made the decision, I'm like, okay, Lord, I am so tired of fighting you. Like, I'm going to make this happen. Susan, like, literally within weeks, I was living out like the most expressive version of my ideal life, like, possible. I was literally within weeks, I was on a stage in Nashville speaking. That's one of my gifting. I love to speak. I love keynote. I love public speaking. I was a contributing author to my first book. I held my very first beach retreat that went off better than what I could have imagined. Like, all of these things that were on my bucket list, and I was literally doing within weeks. I ended up buying an investment property, a lake home, like, out of the blue. Like, everything happened within 6 weeks of me seeing the house to having a first renter. Like, things were just going like crazy. And when we step into where the Lord is leading us, all of a sudden we can get into this flow. And I talk about this a lot because I bridge the world of quantum physics and brain science and scripture into everything that I do. And it's almost like, once I finally made that decision, God was kind of teaching me this lesson that I had picked up when I watched the movie Finding Nemo. Have you seen that movie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Remember in the movie where Dory and Marlin are looking for Nemo, right? And they come up across Crush the turtle.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole time they've been swimming, and Dory's so sweet. She's like, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. I think that's what we oftentimes do, right? And then it was like, okay, they meet Crush the turtle, and Crush is like, hey man, all you need to do is get into the EAC and it'll shoot you right into Sydney. And I think that that's what happens when we get a chance to lean in and allow the Lord to say, I got you, with me to the EAC. And he shot me right into where I wanted to go. But I had to be willing to trust him and saying, all right, I'm ready to do this. Right. But I wasn't. This was me. And this is a lot of my clients. I, was struggling with getting my business up and running to a place where I felt safe and comfortable to step away and to do this, as my primary mode of income. And I thought to myself, gosh, this isn't happening as fast as I thought. Like, I should be making as much money in my business as I am in my job. So that would be easy. And then I started to doubt myself. I started to doubt whether I had what it took. I'd started to doubt whether I was hearing him right. And I didn't trust my discernment. I started to doubt whether I was on the wrong, path. I started to doubt myself. And I think that happens to a lot of people. I also felt like I got sucked into the hustle culture of thinking that I just need to work harder to make this work. Then I'll be able to make enough money in my business to leave my job. Really, all he wanted me to do was trust him, because I left before that happened. But I got stuck into that paradigm of thinking, like, I just got to work harder. So then what happened? Completely burned out. My husband, my kids are like, you're on your phone all the time. And I'm like, well, this is the reason that I'm doing this, is to be a more present mom and wife, but I'm getting the opposite right now. And so I think that we can get stuck in that. And what happens was, once I started to lean into him and know that he's got me, he actually revealed to me, Susan, what was super fascinating during this journey. Cause I was like, God, I don't even know if I'm on the right path. Like, what is my special thing? Like, what am I supposed to do? And he leaned in and he's like, LaChelle, you have the ability to see the puzzle box with the picture on it that other people can't. And you get a chance to see how all of their pieces come together and fit. That's what you need to do. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, I was asking him for the box puzzle piece, the picture. And he's like, here, this is the box, but this is what you do for other people. And that was when I started to, like, oh my gosh, like, yes, all of the struggle, all of the doubt, all of the hustling for the sake of hustling, was meant to be a puzzle piece for me so that I can help other people put their puzzle pieces together and live out their life by design by working with God to create the life that they want, instead of having to constantly trust everything and carry all that burden themselves.
Yeah. And that's definitely going to resonate with those listening, because that's something I talk about all the time, is the partnership over performance. Like it's a completely different mindset when you realize I can just get in the flow. And it doesn't mean that you're not working. It
No,
doesn't mean you're not doing things, but
right.
his primary concern is with you being, right? Who are you being? It's so much more important than what are you doing.
100%. And I think that, it's not that he wasn't trying to teach me like where he wanted me to go. It's that I didn't trust my own discernment. I didn't trust that I was hearing him right, because it seemed so scary. It seemed so big. It seemed like, and then I would get into my Moses moments where I was like, my brother Aaron's a better speaker. Like, are you sure this is where you wanted me to go? Like, I don't know if I'm hearing you right. Like, this can't be right. And I think that, that happens to the best of us. But when we can start to learn how to speak to him, but more importantly, to hear him, like that is when he can guide us, guys. And when we get a chance to step into this grand, fun adventure with him as a willing partner, as saying, I want you to be my business partner in this. I want you to lead me, and I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to trust you. Like, he can take us to the next places that we could never have done on our own. And we start taking inspired action, right? We start taking steps that are going to give us more. Like, I could speak to 1,000 people on my own, by my own power, or I could speak to 10 that have been designed, or divinely orchestrated for us to talk. And those are going to be more fruitful, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's so beautiful. I say all the time, God math doesn't make sense.
No, right.
It's just different. The kingdom is different. But it's so beautiful when when he orchestrates those things, and there's so much more fruit in it. Oh, I love that. And I want to go back and touch on something you said about hearing him, because I think a lot of times we kind of maybe over spiritualize this or think, well, that's just for certain people.
Yeah,
It's a skill,
it is.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's a skill that you can develop. It's not something that like only certain people have and you can't have it. So would you speak to
Yeah.
that a little bit?
In fact, you guys, like, I have a whole like section, like a third of the book is all on like getting really clear on what is leading you and how to discern, trust your discernment. And I'm going to tell you the story. So I was in this skincare business I told you guys about, and I was about 1.5 years in, and all of a sudden things were exploding, right? Like, I was making money, I was earning trips, I was earning gifts, I was getting like, words of affirmation are one of my love languages. Like, I was getting words of affirmation. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then I started to wonder, I'm like, Lord, am I in this now for the patterns of this world? Because you led me to this business. I'm afraid that I'm teetering on that line, and I want to make sure that this is where you want me. And I was really struggling with it. So anyway, I ended up going to a church retreat that I didn't want to go to. I'm a shy introvert. So going to away on a weekend with a bunch of ladies I didn't know, like, scared the crap out of me. So I wasn't going to go. But then they asked me to speak. And so I was like, okay, now I'm serving. So yes, I'll go. And it was so interesting, Susan, that the theme of the retreat was be still.
Of course it was.
And the Lord took this opportunity to make sure that I got to this retreat so I could hear
Yeah.
his message. He was saying to me, LaChelle, you do a really great job in your prayer time of being thankful and asking me for guidance, but girl, you are not listening. You do not take any time in your prayer time to hear what I'm trying to say to you. And I remember removing myself from the activities and going to my dormitory and just praying. And at the time, like, my brain went 100 miles an hour. So it was hard for me to sit there. But for 45 minutes, I sat and I just listened. And I had this download, like a thought. It wasn't an auditory thing, but it was like this like thought that popped out of nowhere. And I just had this feeling of truth that dropped into my heart. And he said to me, LaChelle, you do not need a church to minister to many people. I brought you this business so that people can get to know you through the business. And when they know you, they will know me. And I knew that I needed to continue to stay on that path as long as he was leading me to. And at any time, I promised him that, Lord, if any time you tell me that I need to give up this business, I will do so voluntarily, because that will be my check to know that it's not an idol. And like, you guys, just learning to listen. And I think that, there are so many of us that want these like beautiful burning bush moments where we hear like the angels and the heavens telling us what to do. But that doesn't happen to most people. What I've recognized is that God whispers. If God would stand, or shout from the heavens saying, I need you to do this, we'd probably just scour in the corner like, what the heck, right? He doesn't do that. I think about my own kids. If I yell at them, they're going to be scared. But if I whisper, they lean in. He wants that intimacy with us, guys. And so that is why it's a gift that he is not booming loudly at us, telling us, commanding us. He's whispering inside of our sweet little hearts. And he's just asking us to lean in and listen for the tiny little downloads. And I talk about several of the things that I experienced when I wrote this book, but little things like when I knew that I needed to start this skincare business, like that was a catalyst that changed my life. But it was the noticing that I couldn't stop thinking about it. That's a clue. Noticing that I kept having conversations where this kept coming up, like, what the heck? This is so weird. Why does it keep coming up? Or I kept seeing things in my social media that kept reminding me of it. It's like, okay, God, I hear you, I think. So this is what you want me to do. Please send me people I can help. And sure enough, like within 6 months, I was making enough money to drop my time at the hospital by a day a week. And I think that looking for those little clues, looking for those little coincidences are his little whispers. And so just leaning into those are going to help you to know where he's trying to take you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we way overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
For
You do.
sure. Well, we started out talking about 12-year-old LaChelle. So let's go back to her for a minute. If you could turn back time and talk to her again, what would you say?
Gosh, you know what? Honestly, that's such a great question, Susan, because my first instinct was to say to her, like, girl, like, you are so beautiful. You're going to accomplish more than you could have ever imagined. Know that God loves you. Stand in your power. You are never enough. You're never too much. You are never not enough. Like, you've got this. And that's what my first instinct to say to her. But I'm going to be honest with you. Like, after our discussion today, I think I wouldn't say anything. I think I would just give her a hug and know that she's okay. She's going to be okay, because I don't think that any changes, how could I say this? If anything had changed, it would have robbed me of the experiences that have led me to where I am. And that's one of the things that I feel like the Lord has been sharing with me recently. It's like, I'm still scared, guys. There's still things that I have blocks around. And he took me to this beautiful vision of recognizing that nothing bad has ever happened to me. I get to thank him for the experiences that have led for me to be who I am. And I can stand here with this, like almost like a sword is what I saw in my vision of the sword reaching up to the heavens, like, rise, rise, rise. You got this. No matter what you're going to experience, and you will experience other hard things. You are going to get things wrong. You are going to mess up, but all of them are going to be for your good if you choose them to be. So recognizing, LaChelle, that you have many more gifts coming. And so I don't want to change anything. Would I love to have just given her a hug and held her and just know you're not alone? It's going to be hard some days, but sis, you're going to take all of these things that are hard and you're going to make them into something really beautiful to help other people. And you've got this. And that's what I would do.
I love that. That's just, yeah. It's so beautiful. It is, because nothing is wasted. Nothing is wasted. And I've gotten to a place in my life as well where I would say the same. Like, I wouldn't, even the hard things, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't take it away, because it's grown me and matured me so much. I don't know that I would change anything either. So I love that. Yeah. Well, I know after hearing all of your wisdom today, people are going to want to know how to find you and how to get their hands on this book you've been talking about. So tell us a little bit about that and where we can get it.
Okay, so I actually have my author's copy here. And so it's called Get Out of God's Way. And it's get over yourself and step into the beautiful purpose he has for your life and business. And so what I've done, you guys, is I've taken you through this, like recognizing the desire God places on your heart so you can work with him and to make the decision, not a wishy-washy, I'm going to try, or I hope, like it's like a declaration, like, all right, Lord, let's go. And then the doing, the getting the consistent action without burnout. But I also talk about like what happens to a lot of us is, well, yeah, that sounds great. I'll just do that. Yep, sounds good. It's really easy, right? But there's things that get in our way. Confusion gets in our way. Not trusting our discernment gets in the way. Our limiting beliefs and our imposter syndrome and our money mindset and the labels that we've had placed upon us. And all of these things can get in our way of really making that decision confidently. And overwhelm and lack of the organization and all of that stuff can get in the way of our consistency and our doing. And so what I do is I just take you through the things that are going to likely hold you back from really stepping into everything that you are put on this planet to do. And I lean into the parable of the servants as everything that I want for my life. I want God to just say, well done, good and faithful servant. And when we look at that parable, we're reminded that the master gave 3 servants, different set of coins or talents. And 2 of them chose to reinvest their coins or their talents to make the kingdom better. And the master was very pleased. Well done, good and faithful servant. But one of them chose to bury their coin, bury their talents, fear that he was going to mess up. And I really, really want all of us guys to just take our coins and to not bury them. Take the strengths that he uniquely has given to you to help you step into the beautiful purpose that he has for you. And I want you to know that when you do that, when you lean into him, when you trust him with courage and obedience, he will take you to a place and a life beyond anything you could have ever imagined. And so I wanted to help you get out of your own dang way. And I wanted you to ultimately get out of his way because he has this amazing things that he wants to do through you. And fear and confusion and all of the things can hold us back from really stepping in, that they cause us to bury those coins. And so I want to see you accomplishing everything that he has in store for you. So that's what the book's about. You guys can get all of the details on my website. You can go to LaChelleWieme.com. And I will make sure that I give Susan all of the links to things. I actually have some information specifically on the book, and you guys can get all of the tools. I created a workbook that goes along with this so that if you want to do it in, your business besties, gets them together, your church, you guys can work alongside of this together. And so you can get all of that at LaChelleWieme.com. I also keep everything really simple. So you can find me on all the social platforms as at LaChelle Wieme. So I'm on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the things, right? So super simple, LaChelle Wieme. And I would love to get to know you guys. So reach out, tell me that you heard this episode, and, just introduce yourself, because you're my people. Like Susan, we are like in alignment with the people that we love to serve. And I would love to get to know all of you guys. So reach out, make sure that you are, giving Susan the amazing kudos for bringing us together. So.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited for the book and the workbook. I didn't know there was a workbook. That excites me even more. As you were talking about it, I was like, "Ooh, I want to go through this with somebody." So I love that you're doing a workbook as well. It's incredible. So y'all go to her website, check that out. And LaChelle, it's just been so fun, so much wisdom given. Like I feel like there's just so many layers to everything you shared. Y'all watch this multiple times. You're going to need to, because there's layers in this. There is wisdom here for you. So pick up those keys. And LaChelle, just thank you so much again for just being with us.
Thanks for having me, Susan. Blessings to everybody.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you want to learn more about me or any of my guests, all of the links are in the description below the video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share it on all your social pages. Until next time, remember that you have the power to multiply life without burnout.